Dean Parkin, welcome to 7:30.
Thanks, Sarah.
Now, the opposition leader Peter Dutton said today that the way forward for reconciliation is to drop the voice from the referendum. Would you ever consider that?
Well, look, we're at the very, very end of a very long process, Sarah, that has turned over many different options as to what the best form of constitutional recognition should look like. We asked Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples through the Uluru Statement from the Heart in 2017 what the most meaningful form would look like, and very clearly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people said it's got to be practical, it's got to be meaningful, it's got to be through a voice. So we've just gone through another parliamentary process. This issue has been over-examined. Everybody's had their go at it. We're about a week away from the bill finally passing the Parliament, as you say, triggering the referendum. We can't wait for that to happen and for the campaign to kick off properly.
Now, Noel Pearson at the same time, he's made some comments and he says the focus of your campaign should be more on the issue of constitutional recognition and that the voice is just a means to achieving that. Should there be a rebalancing of the campaign?
Well, firstly, I've just got to say Noel has been an absolute champion for this issue for a very long time. And when he says he has something to say on the campaign, you obviously listen. We've been very clear all the way through that this is about those two parts. It is about recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the Constitution as the First Peoples, and that the most meaningful way through that is a voice. I mean, I was out in Barunga last week talking to Aboriginal people from the most remote communities in the Northern Territory, and they were very clearly talking about the need for both. The need for a unifying moment through this recognition piece, and importantly for their communities, the practical need for a voice to address some of the outstanding issues that they face. So, you know, we're going to get plenty of inputs into the best way we can achieve a successful vote. That's all about getting success, and so, you know, we look forward and we'll continue to work with Noel and others that have inputs into the best way forward. Now,
there was some different polling information that came out today. One in the 9 newspapers showed support for the voice falling below the critical 50%. Is it possible that the Yes campaign did fail to capitalise on the clear support that it had earlier in the year?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. You mentioned that there were a number of different polls. There was another poll that showed that support had levelled out at about that 60% mark. So it sort of demonstrates how fraught it is commentating on the polls as they go through. But clearly over the last couple of months, it is clear that there has been an increase in the contest on this particular issue. We always knew that that was going to happen. We always knew that a referendum is not an easy thing to win, and it hasn't helped that a lot of the conversation has been bogged in that Canberra bubble with politicians and lawyers thrashing it out. That's why we're so excited about this process ending likely next week, the parliamentary process. And the real conversation that needs to be happening here, the conversation with communities across the country, can really kick off in earnest.
Now, we'll come back to some of the questions and the impact of the Canberra bubble in a moment. But first of all, I think in one of those polls, they said that only 1 in 3 voters could confidently explain what the voice is. Is that part of the problem, that people don't know exactly what it's for and what its impact will be?
Well, the experience that we've had in the campaign, and this has been over many years, over the 6 years since the Uluru Statement, is that people want to know when they're supporting a voice that it's going to have a practical impact. They're not necessarily all that focused on reading a 100-page, you know, detailed policy document, but what they want to know is that by voting yes for recognition and voting yes for a voice, that they're doing something practical, that this is going to have an impact on the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And as I said last week, it couldn't have been clearer from the people out at Barunga across the Northern Territory that it absolutely is about practical change. Now, we also know that we're about 4 months out from the vote. The date hasn't actually been set yet. So there is time still to have that further conversation, to further explain what this is about. And when we do, there is an incredible amount of underlying goodwill and curiosity there. And I think that is something that we can work with throughout this campaign.
Well, help me out now, just in order, can you articulate the practical impacts of the voice? I know this is frustrating because it's something that you've been thinking about for an extremely long time, but for those people coming to it new, if you would, just articulate again the practical impact it would have.
Well, every year we see something like the Closing the Gap strategy, and that has been a bipartisan commitment, and there's been, unfortunately, a lack of progress on some of the key issues. Take, for example, mental health and suicides. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people commit suicide at a rate of twice of the non-Indigenous population, and unfortunately, despite the years of investment and the years of goodwill across the political spectrum, that problem's actually getting worse. It's not getting better. What we need to do is we need to go to the communities, we need to understand what's happening, particularly with young people, and get the voices of those people at the table, informing the decisions and the policies and the laws that have an impact on things like mental health, because what we're doing at the moment is just not working. It's just not working, and that's got to change. The voice is absolutely the foundation. We know that when you involve Indigenous people in those decisions, we get better outcomes. It's as simple as that. And so that's how the voice is going to have a practical impact. Now,
you mentioned before that there has been some impact of the debate that's been going on in Canberra. Michaelia Cash today said that if the referendum is successful, the nation that we know today would be irreparably damaged, was her description. So how has the debate in Parliament around what the voice will be and what its impact will be, how much has that hurt your campaign?
Look, I think particularly as the debate has gotten more politicised, it hasn't been helpful. I think what it shows is that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, when we made the decision through the Uluru Statement from the Heart, basically we issued it to the Australian people. We said the politicians have had their go in the past and they haven't been able to rise to the challenge. They haven't been able to rise to the challenge of unifying the country, and they haven't been able to rise to the challenge of finding that real practical change, that game changer for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So we put our faith in the people of Australia. We said it's time to put it to the people of Australia through a referendum. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, in particular in Parliament, has proven that to be the correct strategy, and that's why we're looking forward to this next period. Once the conversation leaves Parliament and gets out into the communities, it's a different conversation, and that's one that we're very keen to really ramp up.
Dean Parkin, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah.